This evening, we are going to discuss scientific management, and that is study section 6. We are going to discuss scientific management, and that is study section 6 of management theory. At the end of this study section, you should be able to define scientific management. 2, you should be able to list and discuss 4 basic ideas of Taylorism. 3, you should be able to mention and discuss some experiments in the scientific school of thought. 4, you should be able to state the contributions of the scientific school to the development of management. And 5, you should be able to discuss the limitation of the school of thought and how the school can help to move the practice of management forward. We are starting off with the definition of scientific management. It is a very clear note that Frederick Winslow Taylor is the father of scientific management, who lived between 1856 to 1915, and he is considered as the father of scientific management. Therefore, what is scientific management? Scientific management is the scientific selection of employees whose jobs are broken down in scientific way and ensure good management between the managers and the subordinates. What are we trying to say in essence is that scientific management is the scientific way of selecting labors or selecting workers and the breaking down of those workers' jobs in a scientific way and ensuring good relationship between the managers and the subordinates. And this is what we basically refer to as the definition of scientific management. And what are the ideas that was developed by Taylor? When you understand the definition of scientific management, the total idea in the definition of scientific management are the 4 basic ideas that was developed by Taylor. But we define scientific management as a scientific way of selecting labor and the broken down of the labor's job in a scientific manner, and the organization should ensure there is a good relationship between the management and the subordinate. And when you look at the components of such definition, those are actually the ideas that was developed by Taylor. And in that case, we now say the 4 ideas developed by Taylor are: 1, each person's job should be broken down into elements, and a scientific way to perform each element should be determined. Number 2, workers should be scientifically selected and trained to do the job in design and trade manner. Number 3, there should be good cooperation between the management and the workers so that the tasks are performed in the design manner. You can see that all of these things are contained in the definition of Taylor are what are broken down. And lastly, there should be division between the managers and the worker. The manager should take over the work of supervision and setting of instruction designing the work, and the worker should be free to perform their tasks. These are the 4 ideas that was actually developed by Taylor. That number 1, each person's work should be broken down and to be shown how to perform the job in a scientific way. Number 2, that workers should be selected scientifically and trained scientifically to do the job as trained. Number 3, that there should be good cooperation between the managers and the subordinates so that the work will be performed as expected. And lastly, there should be division of labor between the managers and the subordinates. The manager should be responsible for the supervision of his work, while the subordinates should be allowed to perform the work themselves. These are the 4 ideas that was developed by Taylor. And in the course of the performance of these activities by Taylor, he tried to experiment some things in order for him to come into conclusion, because Taylor used about 26 years in his career as a management scholar. So he actually investigated 3 companies, the Midvast Steel Companies, the Simon Road Machine Companies, and the Bethlehem Steel Companies. And in his experiment, he tried to experiment the following. Number one, time and motion study. Number two, differential payment study. Number three, drastic reorganization of supervision. Number four, scientific recruitment and training. Number five, intimate and friendly cooperation between the managers and the subordinate. You could see that three of what we discussed are in the component of the definition of Taylor. What are the three that are in the component of Taylor? Drastic reorganization, scientific training and recruitment, intimate and friendly relationship between management and workers. But let's take the 5 experiments that we have mentioned in their order for which he carried them out. The first experiment that was carried out by Taylor was time and motion study. And what is time and motion study? Taylor believed that for assignment to be properly examined, time should be allocated, time should be a yardstick to watch or to monitor the level of work done. In other words, he now introduced a stopwatch to now monitor the rate at which work is done. So every job motion was supposed to be timed. Every job motion was supposed to be timed. In other words, a worker, as soon as a worker commences activities, the job will be timed and ascertained when he completed the activity. In the course of this, Taylor actually wants to examine what best way of performing a job, because he has assigned time and motion to each job that is done. That for every job that is put on motion, he assigned time to it. He will now look at which of the motion method has the fastest level of time, and he will take that as the best way for which job can be done. Number two, he also talks about differential payment. When he talks about differential payment, you look at money as an incentive for workers to perform better. And he postulated that workers that perform according to the standard established by the organization will be paid a normal pay. But when a worker is able to surpass the standard that is established, is going to be given higher pay. So he used payment pattern as a way of encouraging and motivating workers to do their job effectively. And number three is drastic reorganization of supervision. In this case, Taylor came up under two headings: division of planning and doing, and functional foremanship. In this case, he said, let the manager be responsible for planning only. We talk about division of planning and doing. Let the manager be responsible for planning, be responsible for supervision, and allow the workers to do their job. So there will be a division of labor between the managers and the subordinates. The manager is responsible for planning and supervision of work, while the labor are responsible in performing the tasks that is given to them. And he talks about functional foremanship, that the foreman should be active and perform his duty at all times to see that work is done according to how it is designed. Then he went on to look at scientific recruitment and training. Taylor also believed from his experiment that it is only when workers are scientifically recruited and when workers are scientifically trained that they will be able to perform as expected and meet the organizational desire or the organizational objective. He equally talked about the intimate and friendly cooperation between management and workers. In this case, he emphasized that it is only when workers and the management are in good relationship that they will be able to perform at the optimal level. What are therefore the contributions of scientific management? You could see even from the definition of scientific management and from the experiment of scientific management, the definition and the experiment are contributions of scientific management to the field of study of management. The first one, through the motion and time study, we understand that the two and the physical activities concerning a job can be made to balanced and organized. In other words, when you monitor the workers with the level of work they are doing, you can now ensure that there is proper and optimal utilization of the available resources. Number two, Scientific management discovered how important scientific selection of workers was and demonstrated that without capacity and training, a person cannot be expected to do his job properly. The second contribution of Taylor, as contained in this topic, is that when workers are employed scientifically and workers are trained scientifically, and the duty of the worker is assigned to that worker scientifically, such a worker will be able to perform at optimal level. And when workers are not selected scientifically, they are not trained scientifically, and jobs are not assigned to them scientifically, it may adversely affect the performance of such worker. Finally, the scientific management gave work design, encouraged workers to know the best way of doing a job through the motion and time that is attached to the work done. The manager will now discover or will have the understanding on how best can a job be done. Then there are limitations, there are disadvantages that are constrained to the scientific management. The scientific management has postulated so many experiments. The experiment as follows. It talks about time and motion. It talks about differential payment. It talks about reorganization. It talks about scientific recruitment and training. It talks about intimate relationship between the management and the subordinate. And all of these experiments is what will bring the best out of the workers, that the workers will be able to perform the best of their ability. But other scholars said no, that the first limitation is that man is not an economic man. That man has other needs in order for man to work. That man has social need, security need, esteem need, and attaching payment as the only motivating factor to man may not be the best way to ensure that man is motivated. Number two, there is nothing like one best way of doing a job. There are so many best ways of doing a job. But with the principle of time and motion of Taylor, Taylor believed there's only one way or one best way of doing a job. But other scholars are saying no, there is no only one best way of doing a job. There are other diverse ways for which job can be done. Number three limitation. In Taylor's reorganization, he said there's difference between planning and doing the job. In other words, he said labor and the management should be solely responsible for performing the planning and supervising function. The labor should do their job. In other words, it does not give anybody the opportunity of crossing a particular boundary. You always assign individual to specific area. This could lead to monotony of job, since a labor may not be able to see all the stages of production. Lastly, that the advanced method that is introduced into production process has made workers redundant. And as a result of this, a lot of workers are eliminated, which criticizes the principle of Taylor as then was. Thank you very much. We'll meet again in the next class.